Before we dive into this heartwarming story, I'd like to invite you to join our community. If you appreciate narratives that delve into deep human connections and the intricacies of family, click the subscribe button right now. Every new story begins with people like you. The phone buzzed on the mahogany table. Elias Thorne, seated in the oversized leather chair that seemed too large for his 69-year-old frame, glanced at the device with a shy smile. His fingers, marked by time but still steady, unlocked the screen. It was his birthday, and he had just sent a message to Leo, his only son. "Thanks for the virtual card, son. It means a lot to me. Maybe we can have dinner together this weekend. I miss you both. Love you and Chloe." The response came almost instantly, as if it had been prepared, waiting only for the right moment to be sent. "We need space. Please don't reach out anymore." And then, like a cruel twist of a knife, a notification popped up. Chloe liked this message. Elias felt the air leave his lungs as if he had received a physical blow. The executive office on the 40th floor, overlooking the city he had helped to build, suddenly felt small and suffocating. The framed photographs adorning the walls, Elias shaking hands with politicians, cutting ribbons at inaugurations, receiving awards, now seemed to look down at him with disdain. "Mr. Thorne?" Margaret's voice, his executive assistant for over 2 decades, came through the intercom. "The board is waiting in the conference room." Elias didn't respond. His eyes remained glued to the phone, rereading those cold, calculated words. He swiped through the screen, opening the photo album. There was Leo at 5 years old, sitting on his father's shoulders by the ocean. Leo at 16, receiving the keys to his first sports car. Leo at his college graduation that never happened. Leo and Chloe at the lavish wedding that cost a small fortune. An empire built from nothing. A fortune amassed through decades of relentless work. An only child raised with everything money could buy, especially after Anna's death 15 years ago. And all of that had been reduced to a single message: "We need space." "Mr. Thorne?" Margaret pressed, now peeking through the slightly open door, concern evident on her face. "Is everything all right?" Elias placed the phone on the table with an unsettling calmness. Something had shifted in his expression, a sudden, painful clarity, as if a veil had been pulled from his eyes. "Cancel the meeting." "Margaret," he said in a firm voice that didn't quite match the tremor in his hands. "And contact Richard Parker." "Your personal lawyer?" she asked, surprised. In 30 years of working for Elias Thorne, Margaret had learned to read the smallest signs of storms brewing. "Yes. Tell him we need to meet immediately. It's a family matter." Richard Parker's office was located in the city's financial district, a less imposing building than Elias's corporate tower, but still respectable. When the businessman entered the private room, the gray-haired lawyer rose immediately. "Elias, I didn't expect to see you in person today. Happy birthday, by the way." Elias didn't return the greeting. He sat down in the chair across from Richard and placed his phone face up between them, the screen still displaying Leo's message. "I want to revoke the family trust," he announced without preamble. "All of it." Richard adjusted his glasses, leaning in to read the message on the phone. His eyebrows shot up, but his face maintained its professional neutrality. "We're talking about approximately $30 million. Elias? The fund that supports Leo and Chloe's monthly allowances, the Fifth Avenue apartment, the cars, everything," Elias interrupted, his gaze fixed on an invisible point beyond the window. "I want it all redirected." Richard took a deep breath, pulling out a notepad. In 40 years of corporate law and wealth management, he had learned when to argue and when to simply listen. Redirected to where? A state university, the one Leo dropped out of during his sophomore year. "I want to create a perpetual scholarship for low-income students with exceptional academic performance." Richard took meticulous notes, his pen gliding across the paper as if trying to keep pace with the whirlwind of emotions contained in Elias's controlled voice. "It will need to be gradual to avoid legal challenges," the lawyer explained. "But it's perfectly feasible. What should I tell Leo when he inevitably contacts me?" For the first time since entering the office, Elias looked directly at Richard. His eyes, usually calculating and confident, now revealed a disconcerting mix of pain and determination. "Nothing," he replied. "You won't say anything until it's done. Then only the truth. that I finally understood the kind of father I was and the kind of son I raised. As he left Richard's office, Elias felt a weight settle and lift from his shoulders. The afternoon sun bathed the mirrored buildings, casting golden reflections that reminded him of the frames of the photographs in his office. He picked up his phone and, with a few taps, blocked Leo and Chloe's numbers. That night, sitting in the quiet living room of his mansion, Elias opened a physical photo album, one of those relics that almost no one kept anymore. Among the yellowed pages, he found a picture of Anna holding newborn Leo in the hospital. Her smile, the one he would never see again except in these frozen images, now seemed to hold a question. What have we done to our son, Elias? Leo Thorne woke to the persistent sound of the doorbell. Beside him, Chloe groaned irritably, pulling the Egyptian silk blanket over her head. Sunlight streamed through the curtains of their Fifth Avenue apartment, illuminating the remnants of the previous night's party. Empty champagne bottles, plates with leftover gourmet canapes, a small mirror with traces of white powder. Who the hell is at the door at... He glanced at the designer clock on the nightstand. 10:30 in the morning? The doorbell kept ringing, now accompanied by firm knocks. Leo dragged himself out of bed, wearing a silk robe and running his hand through his perfectly styled hair, a genetic inheritance from Elias that he enhanced with expensive treatments. When he opened the door, he found a man in a suit holding a briefcase. "Leonardo Thorne?" The man asked formally. "Who wants to know?" Leo replied, annoyed at the interruption of his sleep. "I'm a representative from Bank of America. I'm here to inform you that all credit cards associated with the joint Thorne Enterprises account have been cancelled, effective immediately." Leo blinked several times, as if trying to process the words through his hangover. "Is this some kind of joke? My father is Elias Thorne." The man remained impassive. "I'm aware of that, sir. The order came directly from him. I need you to sign to confirm receipt of this notification." Chloe appeared behind Leo, her 28-year-old face marked by sleep and confusion. "What's going on, babe?" As Leo mechanically signed the document, Chloe grabbed her phone from the coffee table. "I'm calling Elias to sort this out right now." She dialed the familiar number, but after a few seconds she frowned. Strange, the call isn't going through. Leo finished signing and closed the door in the messenger's face without a word of thanks. He grabbed his own phone and tried to call his father. The same response, nothing. He attempted to send a message, but the text failed to deliver. "He blocked us?" Chloe asked, her voice rising an octave. Leo sank heavily onto the Italian leather sofa, a designer piece that had cost more than many people earn in a year. His mind quickly ran through recent events, the message from the day before, the response that Chloe had practically dictated to him, arguing that they needed to set boundaries with the controlling old man. "It has to be some kind of misunderstanding," he murmured, though a knot began to form in his stomach. "I'll check the banking app." When he opened the app, his face went pale. The joint account that received six-figure monthly deposits from the trust fund showed only the current balance, no future deposits scheduled. Worse, there was a notification of multiple declined automatic payments, including the mortgage on the apartment. Chloe looked over his shoulder, her expensive perfume mixing with the lingering scent of alcohol. This can't be happening. He can't just cut us off like this, can he? Leo didn't respond. For the first time in many years, perhaps since his mother's death, he felt a genuine fear settle in his chest. It wasn't the childish fear of monsters under the bed, nor the teenage fear of social rejection. It was the adult and real fear of consequences. A week turned into 2. 2 weeks turned into a month. Leo and Chloe's world was crumbling in slow motion, like a house of cards hit by an unexpected breeze. First came the credit cards. Then the bank notified them about the closure of the joint account. The condo manager sent an eviction notice for non-payment. The luxury dealership called about the cars, a Porsche for him, a Range Rover for her, that would be repossessed for defaulting on the leases. "This is ridiculous," Chloe shouted, throwing a decor magazine against the apartment wall. "All of this because of one damn message?" Leo sat at the kitchen counter, stirring a cup of cold coffee. His eyes were deep-set with bags, and his normally neatly trimmed beard was growing unevenly. "I tried everything," he murmured. "I went to the office, but security wouldn't let me up. Margaret said my dad is out of town. Richard Parker refuses to take my calls. Chloe halted her frenzied pacing around the room and looked at her husband with a mix of disdain and panic. What are we going to do? We can't afford next month's rent. My Saks card was declined yesterday. Leo rubbed his tired eyes. Maybe we should go to his house. The mansion? Chloe considered the idea. Yeah, he can't avoid us if we show up there. That afternoon, they took a taxi, a nearly alien experience for the couple accustomed to private drivers, into the upscale neighborhood where Elias lived. The house, an imposing three-story structure with meticulously maintained gardens, seemed unchanging, as if it existed in a separate dimension from the tumult of life. When the taxi stopped at the entrance, Leo felt a tightness in his chest. How many times had he passed through those gates without truly noticing the privilege they represented? How many times had he entered that house only to ask for more, never to thank for what he already had? The couple rang the doorbell. Once, twice, 3 times, nothing. They knocked on the door. Silenced, they walked around the gardens, peering through the windows. The house felt deserted, though perfectly kept, as if waiting for its owner to return. He knew we'd come, Leo said, sitting down on the front steps. He's always 2 steps ahead. That's when they noticed an envelope discreetly taped to the side of the door, with Leo's name written in Elias's precise handwriting. Inside was just a card with the address of Richard Parker's office and a date, the following day at 10 o'clock. On the way back to the apartment, neither of them spoke. The taxi traveled through the city streets as the sun set, casting long shadows across the buildings. Leo watched through the window as workers returned home after a day of honest labor, something he had never truly experienced. What if he completely disowned us? Chloe finally asked, her voice softer than it had been in weeks. Leo didn't respond. He had no answer. For the first time in his life, there was no safety net beneath his feet, no golden parachute waiting to solve his problems. There was only the abyss of an uncertain future, and the growing feeling that perhaps they had made the biggest mistake of their lives. Richard Parker's office looked exactly as it had a month ago, when Elias had sat in the same chair Leo now occupied. Chloe sat beside him, her simple dress, the most understated one she owned, contrasting with the jewelry she had refused to leave behind. Richard entered the room with measured steps, carrying a thick binder. His eyes, behind thin-framed glasses, studied the couple without revealing any emotion. "Thank you for coming," he said, sitting down. "I have important information to share with you." "Where's my father?" Leo asked immediately. "Why is he doing this to us?" Richard opened the binder and pulled out a set of documents. "Elias instructed me to answer all your questions with complete transparency. So let's begin. Your father has fully redirected the family trust." The air seemed to be sucked out of the room. Chloe clutched the arm of the chair so tightly her knuckles turned white. "He can't do this," she whispered. "It's our money." "Actually," Richard corrected calmly, "it was Elias's money placed in a fund for your benefit, with clauses that allow modification at the sole discretion of the grantor. These clauses are clearly outlined in the document you both signed 5 years ago." Leo felt his throat tighten. "Where did the money go?" Richard slid a brochure across the table. It was a sleek prospectus for State University, announcing the newly created Anna Thorne Scholarship Fund in honor of Elias's late wife and Leo's mother. $30 million have been transferred to a perpetual fund that will fully finance the education of 20 low-income students each year, forever, Richard explained. The first group of scholarship recipients has already been selected for the upcoming semester. Leo picked up the brochure with trembling hands. His mother's face smiled from the cover, a vintage photo from when she was an assistant professor at the same university, before meeting Elias, before Leo was born. "This is..." Chloe's voice faltered. "Oh?" "Not exactly," Richard replied, pulling out more papers from the binder. "The apartment and cars were repossessed by creditors, as you already know. However, Elias arranged for a small apartment in Brooklyn, rented for 6 months to give you time to settle in. There's also a list of contacts, Elias's friends in various companies who are willing to offer job interviews." Leo felt a wave of humiliation mixed with a strange sense of relief. For weeks he had imagined that his father had completely abandoned him, but here was evidence to the contrary. Not a financial rescue, but an opportunity, a chance for a fresh start. "He wants us to work?" Chloe asked, as though the idea were completely foreign. "He wants you to live," Richard replied, "as independent people, responsible for your own choices." As they left Richard's office, the sky was overcast, threatening rain. Leo and Chloe stopped on the sidewalk, suddenly aware that they had no way to get back home. The taxi would be too expensive for their new non-existent budget. "We can take the subway," Leo suggested, pointing to a station entrance across the street. Chloe looked at him as if he had suggested a walk to the moon. Then, surprisingly, she laughed, a genuine sound that Leo hadn't heard in a long time. "Have you ever ridden the subway in your life?" she asked. "No," he admitted. "You?" "Never." And then, unexpectedly, they both laughed. In the middle of the sidewalk, facing the total collapse of their known world, they laughed like they hadn't since the beginning of their relationship. When they met at a party in the Hamptons, young and carefree, unaware of the real cost of their luxurious existence. "Let's figure it out together," Leo said, reaching out for Chloe's hand. 6 months passed. The small apartment in Brooklyn, which initially felt like a claustrophobic prison for Leo and Chloe, gradually transformed into something unexpected. A home. The walls, once bare, now showcased framed photographs, not in gold frames but in simple wooden frames bought on sale. The kitchen, which had initially remained untouched, now frequently filled with the aroma of simple meals they were learning to cook together. Leo had landed a job at a small digital marketing company, thanks to one of the contacts provided by his father. The salary was modest, but there was something deeply satisfying about earning a paycheck based on his own efforts. Chloe, after several frustrating attempts in the job market, discovered an unexpected talent for interior design and began to build a small clientele. One Sunday morning, Leo was leafing through the newspaper while sipping coffee. The small article in the local section caught his eye. The official launch of the Anna Thorne Scholarship Program, featuring a photo of the first 20 students alongside Elias. His father looked different in the picture, perhaps thinner, but also more at peace. There was a glimmer in his eyes that Leo hadn't seen since his mother was still alive. "He looks well," Chloe commented, glancing over Leo's shoulder. She too had changed. Her hair now natural without the expensive highlights, her face with less makeup revealing a more authentic and less manufactured beauty. "Yeah," Leo agreed. "He looks content." Leo picked up his phone, not the latest model, but a modest device that fit his budget. For months he had respected his father's desire for space, an irony that didn't escape him. Now, however, he felt it was time. With hesitant fingers, he typed a simple message. "Dad?" Across town, in the office, he still ran with the same efficiency as always. Elias Thorne felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. Upon seeing the name on the screen, a name he had only recently unblocked, he felt a mix of apprehension and hope. He read the message once, twice, 3 times. A single word, loaded with possibilities. Outside the window, the State University campus sprawled green and vibrant. Young students walked between the buildings, carrying books and dreams. Somewhere among them were the 20 scholarship recipients of the Anna Thorne program, young people who would have a chance that his own son had squandered. Elias looked back at the phone. His finger hovered over the virtual keyboard, uncertain. There was no longer a fortune between him and Leo, no trust fund, no luxury home or unlimited credit card. There were just 2 people, a father and a son, and the fragile possibility of a new beginning. Carefully, he began to type his response. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Every story we share here is an opportunity to reflect on our own relationships and choices. So until next time.